Adam, I don't think we can really start anywhere else other than with the fact that Mack Brown's tenure as the head coach of Carolina football has come to a close. I believe Sunday was like the last official day. Not that that really matters. Adam, I said this in the postgame on Saturday after the State game, and I think it's right, and you've heard me say this a million times before about things that two things can be true. I think on one hand, it's absolutely true that Mack Brown is probably the most influential person in Tar Heel football in the last 35 years. I think he is certainly in the conversation as the best coach that Carolina's ever had. The stats tell you he is. He's won more games than any coach in Carolina history. Twice Mack Brown got the Tar Heels off the mat and re-energized, rejuvenated, rebuilt the program twice with high levels of success both times. I think it is fair to say that the general overall thought should be that of thanks to Mack Brown for what he has done for Carolina football, because he's done a lot for the program. I think his Hall of Fame career has been defined by his tenure at Carolina and at Texas. Those two places define his college coaching career. And he's been the head coach other places, offensive coordinator before that. He's been in the game for a long time. So I think all of those things are absolutely true. I also think it's true that it doesn't feel like an inappropriate time to go a different direction. I think, and Mack Brown said this himself after the game, that he felt like it was time for new leadership. And when you look at Carolina's recruiting class, when you look at Carolina's results on the field in relation to the schedule that the Tar Heels played, when you look at the stands at the games, it just feels like the program had gotten a little stale. And that in no way diminishes him as a coach, but it just feels like it was not an inappropriate time to do something different. He, like many coaches have, I think Tony Bennett's a great example, said, this is not the game that I grew up in, talking about the kind of climate around college athletics. And he said, and probably somebody else needs to figure out how to navigate through this. This isn't what I am accustomed to. I don't think Mack Brown did a awful job or threw his hands up and said, I'm not doing anything with NIL. That isn't true. But he felt like in this very different landscape that somebody else might be better equipped to manage it. And so I think all of those things are accurate. I don't think anybody should be celebrating this necessarily. I just think what you should be is appreciative of what Mack Brown did for Carolina and also excited to head in a new direction because it felt like it was time for the Tar Heels to do so.
Yeah, I think all those things are right. I think Theo Epstein's the first one I ever heard really say that he felt like, in his case, managerial, but overall coaching tenures kind of have a lifespan.
Yeah.
And they're not all the same, but that they do come to an end, and there reaches a point for everyone where it's just not working the way it was before, and his challenge as an executive is to figure out when that is. I think you could say Bubba Cunningham is in the same position. And I do think he accurately assessed that this particular lifespan of this coaching tenure had run its course. And I what you said is right. I think looking in the stands on Saturday was the best way to tell. And just feeling the energy in Kenan Stadium for the game against NC State.
Yeah.
The game that I think most people were looking most forward to on the home schedule, but it didn't feel that way.
Well, I mean, Adam, it's not hard. It's not hard to find the crux, right? It's the James Madison game. And it wasn't just the result of the game. That was part of it. I think there was already going into this season the attitude from a lot of Tar Heel fans of, all right, show me it's different. Show me. Because I do think there was so much frustration about the way the last couple of seasons ended with really talented rosters, which credit to Mack Brown and his staff for building those rosters. But those rosters delivered success, but also consistently failed to take that final step. So I think understanding that some of that talent was gone with the schedule, which was not particularly attractive this year. And again, some of that's just kind of how it all fell together. There was a show me kind of attitude. And then as soon as that James Madison game happened, the result on the field, the total apathy in the stands, the fact that it was almost, Adam, as empty a Kenan Stadium at the end of that game as I can ever remember for an actual contest being fought for on the field.
That wasn't like a Hurricane game.
Right. All the confusion and drama about whatever happened after that game, it seemed like that was the point. That was going to be the defining point. And without a 180-degree pivot, that was probably going to be the most important thing that happened this year. And I think that's the case. Did the Tar Heels get better? Yes. I do think they improved. But even then, they lost the big lead to Duke. They had the crazy ending in a very difficult situation against Georgia Tech. Their 3-game win streak, which was good, but came against, the ACC has 17 teams, 13 of them qualified for a bowl, and Carolina's 3-game win streak came against 3 of the 4 teams that didn't qualify for a bowl. And again, it's not Carolina's fault those teams didn't qualify for a bowl, but I do think it just gives you some qualifications on that win streak. Then you have another game against BC where you're just not competitive. And the decision already, had been made, but then you lose in the final seconds against NC State in a game where you don't get a single defensive stop in the second half. And some of the things that have been consistent issues were issues again, right? Penalties, lack of consistency on the defensive side. Like that stuff was there again. And so, I don't know, Adam. I just think that it was clear, to your point. The stadium was not full on Saturday. The student section in particular, which I think had been good really the entire tenure of Mack Brown until that James Madison game. And from that point forward, the students weren't 100% there. It just felt like the energy waned dramatically after that James Madison game and never came back.
Yeah, I know people go back and listen to past pods, and I still think some of the things we've said during Mack 2.0 are true. I think at the time he came in, it was a nice fit. And I also think at the time he came in, at the start of Mack 2.0, it felt like a different Mack Brown than 1.0. But I think that as 2.0 progressed, we got further away from his time in the media and we got back closer to 1.0. And by the end, we were basically at 1.0. And unfortunately, Mack Brown's now left 3 big coaching jobs in his career: Carolina, Texas, and then Carolina again. And none of those 3 endings have been very smooth for one reason or another. And I know that it has not been pleasant in the Carolina football world these last months or two to be a Tar Heel football fan. And I think that's why you had to make the move you had to make. Carolina has 27 ACC wins in Mack 2.0. 6 of those are against ACC teams with a winning record. And I think these last couple weeks have really kind of illustrated the problem. I mean, Boston College is a fine team that looked like the Green Bay Packers when they played the Tar Heels. NC State is a maybe slightly less than fine team, like average to slightly above average. Lost to them at home. That is why we are where we are, and everybody appreciates what Mack Brown did, and I still 100% believe there was nobody better to get Carolina through that stretch in October off the field.
Yeah.
Nobody could have done that better. I do think it might have been possible somebody could have done these last couple weeks better on the field, and that's why you have to make the decision you have to make. You'll hear Bubba Cunningham talk about how important football is. You just have to have it. You can't have a view in the stands that you had on Saturday for a game against your rival on Thanksgiving weekend, and the students don't care enough to come back, even though a large percentage of them live nearby. Those are just the facts. And so appreciate what he did. I think this cycle had come to an end, and it's time for a new cycle. And that'll be the story going forward.
So we want to start looking forward. Adam, there seems to be, and I don't want to get into this a lot because I'm not sure that you and I need to. There just seems to be some ambiguity of what happened, when it happened, what was the suggestion, what was accepted and not accepted. And again, I'm not even sure we need to talk about it that much, other than I think it's disappointing that it's as messy as it is, and I'll just say that.
Yeah, and we weren't here for last Monday's press conference.
That's right.
At which Mack Brown said that he did plan to be back in 2025. Shortly thereafter, it was announced that he would not be back in 2025. And I think you can probably connect the dots. This cycle had just come to an end.
Yeah.
One way or another, this cycle needed to come to an end, and now it has.
Adam, I don't know how much really it's even relevant to talk about the game itself on Saturday. I thought Carolina's offense wasn't great in the first half, and then I thought played really well in the second half. Omarion Hampton, it just goes out like he was the whole time he was here. And that's assuming he doesn't play in the bowl nor stay, which neither Adam and I, at least as of this moment, don't know that for a fact. I think we would both be surprised if Omarion Hampton played another game for the Tar Heels. He just goes out like an absolute beast. I mean, he was the best player on the field. Again, he almost single-handedly got Carolina to that win. I thought Criswell played much better in the second half than he had the full game against Boston College in the first half of the NC State game, so credit to him. Chris Culver had a couple of really big plays. The long touchdown catch was a terrific play by Culver. So credit to the Tar Heel offense because it gave Carolina a chance to win. The issue, Adam, is just an issue that has been there before, and that's the Tar Heel defense couldn't get any stops, like literally 0 stops in the second half. NC State scored on every single possession of the second half. Now, the pass, the biggest play of the game, that long pass play to Noah Rogers, was a great play. I mean, it was a great pass and catch. Carolina, I thought, defended it well. They had 2 guys there. The dude just made a big-time catch, but the issue is you didn't get a single stop in the second half. So just a fittingly disappointing end to the regular season. that showed some of the issues that the Tar Heels have had.
Yeah, I don't see how anyone could have seen that game and not agreed that, okay, it's time. All credit to NC State because they have dominated the series recently. I don't think they're all that good this year. They're better than the Tar Heels based on the score. But it's not like you were playing some juggernaut that should have had the type of second half that they had offensively. I really feel bad for Omarion Hampton because I'm not sure 10 years from now people are going to remember him in the way that we do if they didn't see him play.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't on great teams.
I'm going to tell you, I voted for him for ACC Player of the Year. I mean, I doubt he's going to win it. I assume Cam Ward from Miami is going to win, although certainly the Hurricanes stumbled some down the stretch. Maybe there's somebody at SMU that had a dominant enough year. Their running back's really good. But, I mean, I voted for him for Player of the Year. I actually think Miami's slippage at the end of the season might help Hampton have a chance to win it. I think he's the best player in the league. And Adam, I mean, he just had one of the, and we actually have something about Don McCauley that we're going to read later in the show. But, I mean, he ends with the second most yard. And, again, this is assuming he doesn't play again. If he plays again, if he plays in the bowl game, he's likely going to set the single-season rushing record at Carolina. At this moment, he is second, 1,660 yards on the season. Second most in a single year. So he has the second and third highest single seasons in Carolina history. Fourth most rushing yards in a career. And the guys ahead of him are guys who were starters for multiple years. Third most touchdowns in Carolina history, and tied for sixth most touchdowns in single season in Carolina history. He's, I believe, second in career 100-yard games, second in single season 100-yard games. He's just one of the best to ever do it. And you're right. I think perhaps his shine will be forgotten some because the Tar Heels struggled at the end of the year last year and had a very middle-of-the-road season this season. So worth appreciating just the excellence that Omarion Hampton is because he's a terrific player.
In many ways, it really encapsulated his career that when he crossed the goal line with 1:51 left in that game, after a great individual run, showcasing his incredible ability, my personal first thought, along with I'm guessing a lot of other people, was, oh no.
Yeah.
Because there was too much time, and you knew what was going to happen. And that is what happened. And that's kind of the story of Omarion Hampton's Tar Heel career. He was fantastic. And the defense wasn't very good. But he was fantastic in that game as a whole, in his career as a Tar Heel. If indeed it's over, we'd love to see him play again,
yeah,
but also totally understand if we don't. The career span of a running back is low, and you need to minimize the hits you take. And he takes some hits and delivers some hits. So really appreciative of all he did and the way he did it. I mean, that we had him on here. He did not act big time at all. I don't think there was one time this year that he acted big time or made it about himself. I don't think he ever did that. And that's hard to find now. And so it'll be as hard to find another Omarion Hampton as it was to find another Drake May.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Omarion Hampton from Clayton, North Carolina. Right there, one of the best to ever do it for the Tar Heels. So, if his career's over, it was spectacular. And it also reminds you that last year Drake May was the quarterback and Omarion Hampton was the running back for the Tar Heels. They had some big-time talent for sure. So, Adam, now the focus turns to what's next. We are going to have Bubba Cunningham on here in just a little bit where he can, obviously with much more authority, talk about what the next steps are for the Tar Heels. I think it's fair to say that this is an attractive job. I think at this moment, the only other power 4 conference jobs that are open are Purdue and West Virginia and Central Florida. I think Carolina's the best of those jobs. Certainly Purdue is in the Big Ten, where you just inherently at the moment have more finances. But I think Carolina's the best job of that group. And the importance of this hire is high because of the stuff that we talked about earlier. Just the importance of football, the climate of where college athletics is at the moment, the amount of uncertainty around college athletics. You just need a strong leader, coach in that position. And who that is, don't know. Certainly there have been plenty of names thrown around. Don't know for sure. But it is important that Carolina gets this right.
And I don't think the timeline is as important as it used to be. I mean, it used to be you had to get someone in here to save your recruiting class, because if you –
Tar Heels don't have much of a recruiting class left to save. And I don't mean that in some kind of snarky or backhanded way. It's just this was a small class in numbers anyway, and you've already had a couple of guys decommit, which is understandable. So, I mean, it's going to be a big reclamation project regardless of the timing, I think. As far as like the immediacy or the immediate things that you're going to have to do, to me that doesn't change a ton if it happens if you name a coach on December 5th versus December 15th or something. I just don't think the magnitude of that job is going to change with just a couple of days.
Well, and the portal's going to open and players are going to go in.
Well, yeah, and let's just go ahead and say this now. The Tar Heels are going to have a bunch of guys go in the portal. So just go ahead and wrap your head around that. There's no sense in then freaking out about it. Is it good? No. But you take that risk when you make a coaching change, and it as we've talked about the last couple of years, it's going to happen anyway. It's going to happen every year for every program. So expect that, and expect an even higher rate when you have a coaching change. So don't see it and then think, well, something's horribly wrong. Yeah, there is something horribly wrong with the system. There's nothing horribly wrong with North Carolina. It's just what the situation is with the system at the moment.
Well, and let's bear in mind, there's no one indispensable from a team that was 6-6.
That's right.
I mean,
unless Omarion Hampton's coming back.
Right. So, I mean, you've got 6 wins over winning ACC teams in the last 7 years. You need some people to leave, because part of the change you're making is a culture change. And that means people go out and people come in that you hope represent the new culture. People are going to go out probably this week. Doesn't the portal open this week? Get ready. The portal's going to open. Once you have a coach, other players will come in. That's the time you figure out what you have on the roster.
I think it's December 9th. I think.
Is that this week?
That's a week from – that's Monday.
Okay.
I think that's right. We can double check. I think it's the Monday after the championship games.
We'll batten down the hatches. That's when the portal opens.
I mean, certainly no one is talking to other teams or their agents. None of that is happening until December 9th.
Everybody's focused on their studies right now.
Yeah. So it will be interesting to see what direction Bubba Cunningham wants to go. I do think it's fair to say there's been interest in the job. I think there's a lot of different data points you can use. You know, what is most important? Is it you've been a head coach before? Is it does any tie to Carolina matter? Does who you've worked for previously matter? I have no idea. But all of these data points are going to be worth Bubba Cunningham keeping in mind. Adam, is there anything else football-wise that you would like to talk about? 32 guys were honored for Senior Day. Not all of them are necessarily out of eligibility or seniors. But there were a lot of impactful players there that were honored. And I think it's easy to think about how frustrating things got. It is worth remembering that the Tar Heels have had some success, not as much as they would like, and they left something on the table. We are not arguing against that. But there's also been some really good moments. Carolina went to an Orange Bowl. Carolina won the Coastal Division, played for an ACC championship. They've had some terrific players, some terrific wins, some terrific moments. Just didn't feel like they took it full advantage of the opportunities that were there. We can all agree on that, but I think it's also worth remembering there were some terrific times in there.
And they were here during the most volatile time in college athletics ever.
Yeah.
A lot changed from the time they signed their letter of intent to today. And so that was a very up and down college tenure that they had. The only other thing I would say about football is the post-game scene on Saturday.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about it. Go ahead.
I think everyone who listens knows there's no one who gets madder about losing to State than me, especially losing to State in Chapel Hill. That being said, if you beat them, you don't have to worry about how they act after the game. And they have dominated the series here lately. And they acted like it. Is that the way that I hope Carolina acts next year in Carter Finley Stadium if the Tar Heels go over there and win? No, I hope not. But right now, they won the game. They want to talk. Now, the play on Kamen Rucker is different.
I mean, I don't know, Adam, if that play was deliberate. It sure looked deliberate.
And the way that the perpetrator acted in the immediate aftermath of that didn't make it looked, you know what it looked a lot like? Creighton and Kendall Marshall.
Yeah.
Just the way that it was handled. That is different to me than the whole postgame thing when they were happy they won and acted how they acted, and that's just how you expect them to act. I don't expect them to do that to Carolina's most important player. Would you have liked to have Kamen Rucker rushing the quarterback on that last State drive? I would.
I do. I mean, Carolina and NC State was not the only game in which there were a ton. I mean, Michigan Ohio State is the one that got the most attention because somehow it got to the point where police were pepper spraying Michigan players. I mean, what are we doing? I would be surprised if there was not some kind of legislation or some kind of discussion about this. Now, what is that? Do you legislate that you can't take out a flag and try to stick it in artificial turf after the game? But in almost all of these incidents, it had to do with an away team winning a rivalry game and then trying to go showboat at midfield and the other team not liking it. So I don't know. But I do think it probably happened enough, not just Carolina State, happened enough that there's going to be some discussion about how to maybe try and fix this moving forward.
Is it the really easy way to fix this? The head coach to say, don't do that?
Yes, one would think.
Don't act that way?
Yes.
I don't need an NCAA rule to tell me how the head coach ought to act. I don't know who Bubba Cunningham's going to hire, but I hope it's a guy who, when Carolina goes over to Raleigh next year, says, go out and beat them by 14 touchdowns, and then go back in the locker room and we're going to sing the song. The end. You don't have to take the flag out there. You don't have to parade around on a scooter. You don't have to do anything. Just win. That's all.
Yes.
That's the guy to hire.
Maybe it's Adam.
I'm ready right now.
So, man, just kind of a mess. That could just sum up college athletics. Just kind of a mess.